Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, and today we're going to be looking at my latest map for the 2024 presidential election. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want more content just like this, and make sure to go to the description down below and donate to our Michigan and Pennsylvania poll crowdfunding. We are fundraising for a poll we're going to conduct in these two states, so make sure to go ahead if you can support. Any support is greatly appreciated as of right now. And so back to the video. So as of right now, Donald Trump leads the national aggregate by 4.3 percentage points. The difference in favorability rating between both candidates is around 3 percentage points. And on top of that, Biden's approval rating is minus 17.2% as of right now. And so clearly we see Biden basically gained a tiny bit in the national average. He was down almost 5. Now he's down at about 4 points. So it's a little bit, it's like about, half a point less than what it was just a couple days ago. And that's mainly because we've gotten some liberal leaning pollsters putting out national polling data at this point in time. Notice whenever Biden gains, Kennedy goes down. Whenever Biden goes down, Kennedy goes up. That is the big proof to you that Kennedy is actually taking more votes away from President Biden than he actually is from President Trump at this moment in time. And so looking at all the data as of right now, my model shows a landslide victory for the former president in 2024. Essentially, just to break down the model for you guys, we essentially have the RCP lead, the swing from 2020, and we also have the incumbent party approval rating and the difference in their approvals. That produces this map down here, and the demographic model, the polling, the results, swings, and trends also produces this map over here, and those results are averaged out to get the results that you see on the side of the screen right here. And we're going to be filling out the electoral map based on these results. Now for the safe Republican states, we have Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, Nebraska, all of it except Nebraska's second. Kansas is safe now, as well as Oklahoma. Alaska is safe, coming in at almost 23 points for Donald Trump right now. The state of Texas is in the safe Republican column, coming in at about 20 points for the former president. That would be a 15-point shift to the right from the previous cycle. By the way, just to preface this prediction, as of right now, the model actually has Donald Trump winning the national popular vote by about 9 percentage points as of right now, indicating a huge shift to the right from just 4 years ago. That would be a massive shift to the right as of right now. And so we see on the map right here that the former president is performing extremely well in certain states that he won last time, even winning states like Indiana, where he just won by 16 points last time. Now he's up there by 29 percentage points. In the state of Iowa, he's up by 21 points. In Ohio, he's up by 22 points. South Carolina, a likely state that only voted for Donald Trump by 11, is now voting for him by 24. And the state of Florida right now is actually a 20-point victory in this forecast, as well as the main second congressional district coming in at around 19 points. And the state of North Carolina, that's going to be a new state added in the safe Republican column. The model has Donald Trump winning by 15.1% in the state as of right now, giving him 235 safe electoral college votes to start out with. We only have 4 safe Democrat states on the map as of right now, those being the state of Vermont, which is typically a very blue state on the map. It actually voted for Joe Biden by 35 points last cycle. Right now, the forecast only has him winning the state by 28 points as of right now. That is an abysmal performance. States like Massachusetts, for example, coming in at 24 points for Joe Biden, Maryland at just 22 points, and the District of Columbia at a 73-point victory for Joe Biden. All of these numbers coming in only give Biden 27 safe electoral college votes in this forecast. Not even the state of California and Hawaii are in the safe column. And I'm going to get to Hawaii in a second, because Hawaii is actually a very interesting result in this model. Essentially what I've done is I basically built the model for the 2020 election. It shows Biden winning the electoral college by 350 electoral college votes to 188. The only difference is that Florida and North Carolina go blue, and so I've calculated a margin of error for every single state, and I've applied it to this model to try to correct for any errors that could potentially happen. And so this is essentially what's going on right now. And so now for the likely Republican states, we have the state of Wisconsin at 12.5 points for Donald Trump. That would be a huge shift to the right with white working class voters as well. In the WOW counties, that would really make a big difference. In the major city areas, he's really pushing it to the right. And what we're seeing in polling data when you cross-examine it is that Donald Trump has a lot more room to grow with college-educated voters, and that's actually who he's making more gains with, even more than non-college educated voters. He's kind of starting to max out with that other group. And right now, he's really expanding his base with college-educated voters, and that's why you're going to see massive victories in certain states. In the state of Michigan, right now, it is currently, if we look at the margin right here, 8.5 points for Donald Trump in the state. Pennsylvania is a 9.8 percentage point victory for Donald Trump. These are massive wins in the states as of right now. And right now, if we go to the RCP aggregate in the state of Pennsylvania, the head-to-head matchup has it as a 5.3 percentage point victory. So guys, this is not entirely impossible. That would only be a couple points off. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be 100% accurate, but the fact that Pennsylvania right now is over a 5-point lead, showing a likely margin in the electoral college for the state, clearly proves that this model is definitely onto something, especially considering the fact that Pennsylvania RCP aggregates tend to be pretty accurate. We have the state of Georgia coming in at 11.3 percentage points for Donald Trump. Him gaining in the Atlanta area is definitely going to make a big difference here. The state of Arizona, 11.6 percentage points. By the way, we got a plus 15 poll out of Arizona. Now, yes, it's kind of a Republican internal, but the fact that we even have a number like that is pretty crazy. And there's been more polling showing Arizona being a high, single digit, low double digit victory in the state. So this is not entirely out of the realm of question. In the state of Nevada, we have a 12.7 percentage point victory. We've had polling here show Donald Trump ahead by 14 points, by 10, by 11. We just had a poll come out the other day that had Trump up, I believe, by like 10, 11 points. So again, this is not entirely out of the realm of possibility in this electoral college scenario. We also see, as of right now, in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, that's actually going to be a 2.8 percentage point victory for Donald Trump as of right now, which I think is very, very fascinating that the state is actually going to be that big of a victory as of right now. This district is kind of trending really far to the left. Clearly, Donald Trump is winning the popular vote by 9 here and is only winning the district by about 3 points. That definitely is spelling major doom for the Democrats, right now, but definitely is going to be a trouble sign for Republicans in the future, because if they lose the popular vote, they effectively lose the district by like over 10 points. So that's definitely going to be a problem for them down the stretch going into 2028. Now, for the likely Democrat states and districts, we have the state of California coming in as a likely state here at just 12 points for Joe Biden. Donald Trump, in recent polling data, has either been, competitive with Asian voters, or he's actually just outright winning them by 10 or even more points than that. And so because we're seeing such a big shift from the Asian vote, that's why states like California and Hawaii are going to be closer than expected, because those groups are actually moving really far to the right. That's actually probably going to be one of his biggest, if not actually his biggest subgroup shift in the entire election cycle, which is definitely going to play a factor into states like California, Virginia, New Jersey, Hawaii, etc. Connecticut, as of right now, is coming in as a 9.6 percentage point victory. The state of Delaware at 9.5 points for Joe Biden. We also see the state of Rhode Island come in at 10 points for Joe Biden. The state of New York comes in as a 6.4 percentage point victory. The latest poll has Biden up by 8 points there. The polling error is pretty bad there, but when you model it out based on our trends, looking at different things, or demographic model, when you put everything together, it shows Joe Biden leading the state by just 6 points. And, literally the other day, Democrats were freaking out about the state. So the fact that people are going to say, oh, it's not going to be under 10 is kind of ridiculous right now, considering the fact that Democrats have been panicking in the state of New York and have actually even encouraged Biden's team to even pour resources into the state of New York as of right now. So that is a big sign that something really big is brewing there. And by the way, I don't incorporate any of the midterm results. I don't incorporate any of that stuff. The only thing this does is it goes back to 2004 and it tracks the trend in the entire states as of right now on the presidential level, not the midterm levels or even the House at all. The reason why I do it like that is because the electorates for midterms are way different than the ones on the presidential years. Those electorates tend to be a lot more college educated, and that's why you see a lot of wonky results during midterm cycles. So the fact that Biden is only leading the state by like 6.5 points is pretty impressive for Trump at this moment in time. We also have the state of Washington at just 5 points for Joe Biden. What's pretty interesting is that we've actually had polling data out of the state of Washington that has actually shown Donald Trump leading it by like 5 points when you include third-party candidates. Now, again, it's an internal from Republicans, but the fact that Joe Biden is down, even in a Republican internal in Washington, is a really bad sign for Donald Trump. That is a horrible sign. Joe Biden should not be down in any Washington poll at all, even if it's a Republican internal, let alone being within 5 points. Because there was another poll that had Joe Biden only leading the state by about, I think it was 6-7 points. So that's pretty realistic with what I have as of right now as the margin for the state. And so that's going to give big warning signs to the Biden campaign. Even Maine's first congressional district, 14.5 points. Now that district is trending completely left off a cliff. It's trending super far to the left. And you're actually going to see something really interesting out of the state of Maine that I think is actually going to surprise everybody in this prediction. So now hopping over to the lean Republican states, we have the state of New Mexico at 2.2 percentage points for Donald Trump. A lot of people have been skeptical about this flip. I mean, if we go back here, you see the state of New Mexico was a 10.8 percentage point victory for Joe Biden last time, so it is a little wonky. However, we do have a lot more third-party candidates this cycle, a lot more third-party support. Donald Trump is really gaining with Hispanic voters this time around, and since New Mexico has a pretty heavy Hispanic electorate, I think it's actually the most Hispanic populated state in the entire nation, you're going to see a big shift there, and when we model it out, it shows the state as a 2.2 percentage point victory for Donald Trump in this electoral college scenario. The state of Virginia comes in at 2.8 percentage points for Donald Trump in our forecast. Again, when you look at the national swings, you see about an 11 to 13 point shift depending on the poll, because when you go back and look at those polls that sample back to the 2020 election, the really interesting part about that is that when you sample back to 2020, you actually get to see the raw swing of the poll itself. And at times, you'll see about an 11, 12 point swing of the nation from plus 4.5 for Biden just 4 years ago. That indicates Donald Trump would be winning the popular vote anywhere by 8 to 10 points, and we have it at around a 9-point victory when you model out all the state victories. So that is pretty interesting. So Virginia is trending to the left, but not enough for it to be, it's not trending left enough for it to still be blue in this scenario. I believe Donald Trump would win the state by about, 1 to 3 points as of right now. The model does show it as a 2.8 percentage point victory. There is a decent Jewish/Muslim population here that's definitely going to affect the margin in the state of Virginia as of right now. And you do have a lot of college towns here, and Donald Trump is improving with 18 to 29-year-old voters, so that's definitely going to help him in a state like Virginia as of right now, as well as the endorsement from Glenn Youngkin is definitely going to push him in the state. And I believe that's been reflected in the polling, which is also incorporated in the model. If we look at the state of Minnesota, it is just a 1.2 percentage point victory for Donald Trump. Yes, it's only a 1-point victory in an R+9 national environment. That's because the state has actually been trending far to the left. And this would actually make sense because even internal Democrat polling data in all of the battlegrounds has Minnesota as still a likely, it's still tilt blue. It's still going to Biden even post debate. And his disapproval rating in the state of Minnesota is actually pretty low. It's actually one of the, he's actually not that disapproved of in Minnesota. He actually has like a 44% approval rating in Minnesota. And so I actually think it might be harder than most people are thinking for Donald Trump to flip Minnesota, but because he's shifting the nation to the right by so much and he got such a boost from the debate, I do have him winning the state by 1.2 percentage points in this scenario. as well as the state of New Hampshire. As of right now, we actually can look at the state. Donald Trump is only winning it by 0.6%. This is a state that's been trending to the left by a lot as of right now, and clearly it's trending to the left. I mean, this is R+9 and it's a till Republican margin, so definitely the state is trending to the left. If Democrats win the popular vote, the state more than likely will actually be like a D+12 margin by the time the Democrats are winning the popular vote. After this year, this is the last year that the state's actually going to be remotely competitive, in my opinion, at least for a very, very long time. Looking at the lean Democrat states, we have Oregon at a 3.8 percentage point victory for Joe Biden. That is a very low margin in the state of Oregon. And now polling here tends to be pretty off, and there isn't any pre-programmed polling errors. However, the model is adjusted from the 2020 results that we have for the model to try to account for any error. And the model is not ridiculously off either. I don't have Biden winning 400 electoral college votes. I have him winning 350, and the only states that are wrong retrospectively are North Carolina and Florida in that model. And so that's not really something that's too out of the blue for it to be like, oh, his margin of errors are going to be way too off. There's actually some states where the model almost gets it pretty spot on. New Hampshire, the Minnesota margin is pretty good. Maine at large, New Mexico is not bad. Virginia, I think the model has it. We can actually go to the model here right now. We actually see the model has Virginia as like a 13.7 percentage point victory. Biden won it by 10. That's like about a, it's about a 3-point miss or so. We look at the state of New Hampshire, plus 6.8 percentage points for Joe Biden. We see the margin of error is not that high. Biden won it by 7.4 points. Now, in a state like Nevada, it is pretty bad. But Nebraska second, it's actually not that bad. We look 6 points, 6.6. Even Nebraska's first congressional district, 14.9% here. The model has it at around, 14.2. So again, not terribly off. Montana's like a 3-point miss. Missouri's off by, I think, literally like probably a point. Yeah, it's like less than a point off in this scenario. Mississippi's off by like about 4. Maine's second is pretty close, and Maine at large is actually really close. It's actually less than a point off. So Maine's results were pretty accurate. Iowa was off by about 3 points. Florida was off by a bit, including Georgia. And if we look at Oregon, for example, 18-point victory, we see here was about 16. So it's about 2 points in favor of Biden. So you're seeing that the states where the margins are actually really off in the model are states that Donald Trump more than likely would win anyway. The model actually accurately predicted in 2020 states like Oregon more, states like Colorado more, Minnesota, New Hampshire, which are all pretty competitive now according to the model, and even recent polling data shows everything pretty more competitive at this point in time. If we look at the state of Colorado, it is a 4.7 percentage point victory. This state has been trending far to the left. Very, very far. I almost think it's going to be virtually impossible for Donald Trump to be able to pick this off. And I also don't think he's going to be able to get New York either. Oregon, it's it's kind of a reach, but it could possibly get there at some point in time. Now, the state that I think is within reasonable reach, believe it or not, is actually Illinois. The margin on the model is only 2.2% for Joe Biden. The latest poll back from like October of last year has Biden winning the state by 8 points, which is like way before the debate happened. It's way before the actual cycle started happening. And when we get more polling data out of there, I actually suspect the race to actually be really close there. I might actually even be interested in polling Illinois because I'm actually really curious to see what polling data has in that state. The state of Hawaii is only a 4-point victory in the model. Now everyone's like, okay, what is going on here? Why do you have Hawaii within a couple points? The reason why I have that as the case is because if we look here, we see in 2008, plus 45 for Obama, plus 42. The nation shifted, 3 points to the right, or 4 points. So it's like, okay, the state shifted about, 3 points to the right. That, is kind of in line. Then the nation only shifted like 1.5 Republican and went all the way down to D plus 32. That's like a 13-point trend to the right. And when you look here, the Democrat national environment actually got more Democrat, and it got even closer. So the state's actually the fastest trending Republican state out of any state in the entire nation. And the fact that you have high third-party turnout in the state, the fact that you had the Maui fire disaster, that's also a really big problem. So when you factor all of that in, the polling data actually has the state really, really close. You know, it's only an 8-point victory in the latest poll with third parties. That is a really big problem for Joe Biden in the state of Hawaii. And the 2020 model actually got the state pretty off. It was about 10 points. So when you adjust for an error, that roughly produces, you know, that roughly is going to produce a certain amount. We see here in the first part of the model in the state of Hawaii, we have it as a 34-point win. It ended up being 29, so about 5 points off. And when you go here to this part of the model, if we go to the state of Hawaii, we see here it was a 43-point margin in the state of Hawaii. Absolutely ridiculous. Because again, when you look at the trends here, we see Hawaii was pretty close in 2004. The state has actually been somewhat close when the Republican has won the popular vote. You see, Hawaii was only 8.7 percentage points for John Kerry back in 2004 when the Republican won the national popular vote by only 2. And yes, the state did start trending to the left, and it is more to the left than what it was here, obviously. But right now, with Joe Biden being very unpopular there, the polling data, the only poll out of there being really, really closer than comfort, to be honest, that's why the state is at the margin where it's at right now. And the state of New Jersey is just a 1.1 percentage point victory for Joe Biden. This is a state that voted for him by 15.9 percentage points. But when you look, new polling data has Republican internals up in the state. Has the Republican internals have Donald Trump up in the state by about a point or two. And the only nonpartisan poll back from like February or March has Biden up by 5 with third-party candidates. So the state of New Jersey is definitely going to be a problem for Joe Biden going into the campaign. I cannot wait to actually get what is happening out of there with new nonpartisan polling data. I'm really curious to see what that actually says as of right now. In the state of Maine at large, again, I said that this was going to surprise everybody. It is only a tilt Republican state on the map. It's actually only 0.2 percentage points for Donald Trump in this scenario. It is very, very close. Maine at large and New Hampshire have been trending to the left, and they're going to trend more to the left because these states have an older white population. They have a lot more libertarian, anti-Trump-esque type voters, and so these states might actually be pretty difficult for Trump to pull them off. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Joe Biden actually still held on to these in the 2024 presidential election, just because of how far they're going to be trending to the left this cycle. But that's pretty much it, guys. Right now, Donald Trump is forecasted to win 347 electoral college votes to Joe Biden's 191 electoral college votes. If you guys disagree in the comments, you can go ahead and type what your argument is, what documentation you have as to why these could possibly be wrong. Again, do I think Hawaii, personally, do I think it's going to be under 5? No, I have it as like an 8-point win, 9-point win, kind of like what the polling is showing. But with the model, it kind of gives us a better picture, and it actually helps me kind of not be stuck in a certain zone, because let's say Biden gains like a bunch of points in the polling data. Me, myself, supporting Trump is going to be like, oh no, he's actually still going to be up. Like my brain will physically not let me cope with the fact that Biden took the lead in the polls. But when you have a model like this, it actually kind of helps you assimilate more, and it kind of helps you track the results in real time as best as you possibly can. That's why doing modeling like this is actually really, really important. You see here, I can adjust this. Like if this is a tied popular vote map, the map gets way closer actually. It actually gets not way closer, but I mean, it's a decent amount closer. I mean, Trump would be losing Minnesota. He'd be losing Maine at large. He'd be losing New Hampshire. He'd almost be losing Virginia and New Mexico at that point. Pretty much. I do think it's pretty interesting that the polling model right now, I do think it's interesting that the modeling right now does actually show trends very similar to the Democrat internal polling. That to me is pretty interesting, because those internal polls have to be accurate. So that's also pretty interesting. See, when you tie the difference in favorability and you tie the aggregate, Donald Trump, I mean, would obviously still be winning by a lot, but it clearly Biden gains back a decent amount of support. Minnesota's even a 2-point win. Even Nebraska's second goes back. Even at that point, Virginia would be going back. Like Trump could win the popular vote by 6 points and only win the electoral college with 312 electoral college votes. So that's kind of what I'm showing as of right now. Even if Biden were to be leading the national popular vote by about 5 points right now, let's say he was leading it by 5 and he was ahead of Donald Trump in favorability by 5 points, we'd see a much closer race, but Joe Biden would still be winning fairly. Donald Trump would still be winning comfortably. He'd be winning Wisconsin by a few points. Georgia would be there. Michigan would be tilt Republican. Pennsylvania, in this scenario, would be a 1.6 percentage point victory. So we see those states' trends kind of stifled a bit. We see Wisconsin's trending to the right by a lot more. And even to an extent, you see the popular vote is now tied. So when you tie the popular vote, you get Donald Trump winning by 312, which is a pretty realistic result at that. Texas is a likely Republican margin because of the Hispanic trends. Nevada is a 4.5 point victory because of Hispanic trends. Nebraska second is a 5-point victory. We also see Michigan is still. We see Georgia is a lean Republican state. Arizona is also lean, and you see that they are kind of getting a little closer, indicating that you would definitely see a bit of a problem there. Now, let's say at this point in time, Joe Biden was basically ahead by this much, right? Let's say that was the case. I want to actually try to get an environment similar to 2020 to show you guys what would actually be happening right now. Like, let's actually get the popular vote like exactly the same in the modeling, because I actually want to see what that would actually look like. I want to see what the modeling would look like with Biden's current approval rating, what this would look like. Okay, 4.4, close enough. So Wisconsin, he would lose Wisconsin. He'd be winning Virginia by a little bit more than 2020. He would improve in Pennsylvania by a lot. Nevada would be tilt Democrat. North Carolina would still be an improvement. Ohio's margin would be exactly the same. Iowa would actually be slightly closer. Kansas would be a 10-point win. Louisiana gets closer. Maine at large is definitely a pretty big victory. Michigan is actually likely here, which is crazy for Joe Biden. Florida would be 6.5. That seems about right. Arizona is a lean margin here. Georgia is also lean for Joe Biden as of right now, indicating that the states would be trending to the left. Alaska is getting closer. That would indicate a trend. DC is literally roughly the same, which I would expect. Colorado is 5 points more Democrat, indicating a leftward trend. California is 4 points closer, indicating the rightward trend that the state has had over the past couple years. So you see, guys, this is not actually that unrealistic. Even Hawaii continues its trend to the right, only a 17-point victory. So clearly, if Joe Biden was a lot more popular, he would be leading by a lot more than this if Biden was up by this. Even if Biden had his approval rating from last cycle, then you would see a pretty big victory for Joe Biden. Even North Carolina would flip, but you see actually Biden's winning the popular vote by 6.5, and he's barely winning North Carolina. So that's another thing too. So clearly Joe Biden would have to massively improve in order to even get close to what that was. Like, he'd have to really be pushing it. Like, it would have to be a lot. Even here, if the polling aggregate was exactly the same from last cycle, Biden had the exact same approval rating, and the difference in favorability was exactly the same, Trump still wins Wisconsin, he still wins Nevada, he loses Pennsylvania, and he loses Michigan, but he does still lose Arizona and Georgia, which would indicate a very narrow loss in the Electoral College. So you see that would be a 2.8 percentage point victory for Joe Biden. So all these people are saying, oh, Biden could win the popular vote by 5 and maybe still not win. You definitely can't act like that. You have to be you have to be conscious. You definitely have to be a little careful, because that's not exactly true. So that is basically what the model is showing as of right now for 2024. Clearly, if the polling data was way better for Joe Biden, he would actually be leading in the Electoral College, or at least be relatively competitive. But that is not what is being shown in the data right now. That is not what is happening. In fact, Donald Trump has a significant advantage, and all of the polling in some of these states indicates this. Like, even, for example, Colorado, the state of Colorado, there was a Democrat internal poll, by the way, with third parties that have Biden up by 6, and it's a Democrat internal, meaning that it's skewed to the left. And so a 5-point win is not that unrealistic from that latest poll. So Make sure to go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want more content just like this. Make sure to go ahead and follow the Twitter and join the Discord server in the description down below. And if you would be so kind, make sure to go ahead and donate to our Michigan and Pennsylvania poll crowdfunding. All support is greatly appreciated. And I will see you guys in the next video. Comment down below what your predictions are, as well as your discussion for this prediction. Let me know if you have any disagreements over this prediction as of right now.